Okay, it's the unwritten rule in New Zealand politics that politicians' houses and families are completely off limits. But it's been shattered, ironically, by those calling and screaming out for the human rights for others. Pro-Palestinian activists protested outside Winston Peters' private home and threw a brick through the front window. Everyone's condemning it as outrageous, and it is, and unacceptable, and it is. So why won't Labor support laws banning such activity? Hypocrisy? Weasel words, as National says? And is it fair to blame Chloe Swarbrick? The man at the centre of all this, Winston Peters, joins me from Parliament.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, proudly sponsored by the Brothers Green. Unlock the innate power of New Zealand botanicals to support your mobility. Try the Brothers Green New Zealand Move Joint Support Tonic and join over 20,000 other Kiwis experiencing easier movement. For as little as $1 a day, you too can experience the power of New Zealand hemp seed oil for your joint health. Head to brothersgreen.co and use code DG20 at the checkout for 20% off your first order. It's a good one. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch. Okay, g'day, good evening. Welcome to Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, and please subscribe. We really appreciate that. Go even further. Join Team Duncan. Text 3598. So text the word Duncan to 3598 for $7.99 a month. That'll unlock bonus episodes, Ask Me Anything sessions, my weekly newsletter, so much more. So 3598 if you text the word Duncan to that number, and then please subscribe. Appreciate it. Okay, it must be unnerving to have a brick thrown through your front window. Who did it? Why? And will they go even further than that? That's the big question. Politicians' houses, spouses, and kids have always been off limits in New Zealand politics. I've covered this stuff for a long time now, and we've never gone there, but perhaps no longer. Winston Peters' private peace was shattered. The line was stepped over when a pro-Palestinian protester biffed a brick through his front window, with his partner inside and his dog home at the time as well. It's thuggery. It's pathetic. It does nothing to get your point across. So can a new law stop this? No. But it can make protest outside politicians' houses illegal. It's a tricky law to write and make work, but Labor won't support it. Neither will the Greens and Te Pāti Māori. They scream out for human rights to be upheld and then refuse to support a law that does just that. Winston Peters is with me shortly, so let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight here. You don't win political arguments by chucking rocks at someone's house. You don't change the world by vandalising the home of an 80-year-old man who served this country for, the best part of 50 years. That's not protest, it's cowardice dressed up as activism. Over the weekend, certainly on Monday, Winston Peters' house was targeted again. Windows were smashed, property damaged, his privacy shattered. Why? Because some petulant keyboard warrior didn't like the government's stated position on a Palestinian state, and they sure don't like him as part of this government. Sure, but this time the rage went deeper than domestic politics. This time it was international. Anonymous online chatter and hastily scrawled slogans at the scene pointed to New Zealand's position on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And in particular, Foreign Minister Winston Peters' refusal to back the full-throated pro-Palestinian language demanded by some activist groups. So let's be clear. We now have people in this country so furious about New Zealand's measured diplomatic stance, measured, not extreme, but measured, that they think the right response is to attack a politician's private home. And some in the protest scene are treating it like some kind of noble act of resistance. It is not. It's pathetic and it's criminal. And it's bloody dangerous and deeply dangerous. Look, I get that people are emotional about Gaza. Who isn't? You can oppose violence, you can mourn the innocent and advocate for peace without becoming a violent thug yourself. You can march, you can write, you can protest without terrorising an 80-year-old man, his partner and dog in the middle of the night. You immediately lose any high moral ground. You lose the argument. You back violence, in my view. And here's where it gets worse. In response to the latest act of political violence, the coalition government introduced a law or legislation to crack down on targeted harassment of politicians at their homes. Now, it's a tricky law to write, all sorts of fishhooks, but it's designed to strengthen police powers and protect public officials from this kind of intimidation outside their homes. It's a no-brainer, right? Wrong. Because Labor, the Greens and Te Pāti Māori, God, they're deluded, refuse to support it. Why? Apparently it's an overreach. They're concerned about civil liberties. Where was that concern when Winston's windows were smashed in? When his personal safety and that of his loved ones was put on the line? How do they feel about being in the house now? When a political message was delivered through fear, not dialogue, it doesn't work. It's not acceptable. And let's not ignore what this really means. We're now importing the world's most volatile conflict into our own streets and treating it like, oh, it's fair activism. Labor can't have it both ways. They can't cry foul over the attack, then refuse to support the law or legislation protecting MPs' homes. They've taken the side of the thuggish protester, in my view. There's no other way to describe their position. Labor, the Greens, and Te Pāti Māori, when they were asked to make a decision, when they were asked to put their reputation and their vote down on the bit of paper, they decided to not support a law. They instead took the side of activism, they took the side of protest, and they decided to back thuggery and violence over laws protecting privacy and human rights. It's on record, and shame on them. It's on record. You may not like what I'm saying, but it's on record, and that's how they did it. How can anyone take Labor seriously now? I don't ask you about taking the Greens and Te Pāti Māori seriously, because I think they're a standing joke. Protesters who claim to stand for peace are throwing rocks through windows. I'll say that again. Protesters who stand for peace are throwing rocks through windows. MPs who claim to stand for democracy are voting against laws to protect it. And no one on the opposition bench seems brave enough to say, this has gone too far. I'll say it. There's an unwritten rule in New Zealand politics. It's a line that you don't cross. You don't target MPs' homes and their families. You don't involve their families. You don't bring the fight to the front door. That line's now been crossed. Instead of pulling the country back from the edge, some politicians are now pouring fuel on the fire. Say what you like about Winston Peters, and you do, but at least he's willing to name the problem. He's right to call out Chloe Swarbrick for her silence. He's right to call out the increasingly radicalised fringes who think they can use global conflicts as an excuse for this domestic intimidation and thuggery. There is no excuse. You can't import this stuff, and you have. And he's dead right to demand action. Because here's the bottom line. You don't fight for human rights overseas by trampling on them at home. That's what we've done here. We're going to bat for Gaza by saying, here's a brick through your front window, Winston. You don't defend Palestine by throwing and threatening New Zealanders. And you sure as hell don't fight oppression with a brick through someone's window. I've never really talked about this, but 20 years ago, after being involved in a high-profile sting and investigation into a cabinet minister, who subsequently was stood down from cabinet, I returned home to my house. And it had been broken into. Windows were all open, front door open, curtains, flushing about in the breeze. And this was an attempt, I believe, to silence me, to shut me down. TV3 got security experts in. Then we changed the locks, moved my partner and kids. We had 2 young girls out of Wellington for the week. And security kept an eye on our movements and their early childcare centre where they were at, their Kohangalil. So it's pretty intimidating. It was unnerving being in the house for a while. So it should never, ever be like that. And I wonder if this is what Winston's now facing, that sort of unnerving feeling that something else could come through the front window or door. Violent thuggery and targeting homes is the work of standover men and gangs. Genuine protest should be much better than this, and now it's not. We've reached a new low, and Labor's just backed that new low, in my view. The country's better than this, or at least it used to be. So it's time to grow up, New Zealand, and to those protesters, bring back the line, and this time defend that line.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, the man at the centre of all this is Winston Peters, and he joins us from Parliament. Winston, g'day, nice to see you.
Hello.
So how's it been the last 24, 48 hours? You know, you've had this incident. It's settled down now. There's been an arrest, but how's things at home? It can't be easy.
Well, it's actually, I suppose, a disgusting, unwanted distraction on doing a real job, so to speak, but we can't let it go. You've got to respond to it. You can't let them succeed in this sort of legal breaking and throwing crowbars through a window and committing acts of burglary. It's actually rotten, and those people who seek to defend it or make out they're not part of it should not be allowed to get off that lightly, and that's why they're screaming at the present time, because they've been found out.
Yeah, well, you don't defend human rights by taking people's human rights and privacy away, do you?
No, you can't. The reality is the human rights belong to everybody and has to be asserted for everybody. But when you've got somebody at a press conference the next day claiming not to know the person next door to them in the same press conference, when they have been engaged in social media exchange over the last few months, that is just unacceptable. And I'm asking myself, how come somebody in the mainstream media didn't make that point to her?
You're
not,
know. You're not relying on the mainstream media for. You probably know.
No, you don't. But nobody's on redemption, and there are some good people still in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
But their producers and those people in control of them are just not giving them a fair go to do their job professionally.
Yeah, I'm not going to always argue that. I'm no longer argue against that line. To be honest, someone who's been involved in media, there's a whole new podcast on that issue, a whole new chat on that issue. But what they've done there, that woman standing beside Chloe Swarbrick, it's obvious. You are in some way linked to that. I mean, if someone was standing beside you and it happened, we'd be blaming. The finger would be pointed at you. So you blame Chloe Swarbrick.
Well, if I barefaced said to the media, I don't know that person, and they knew otherwise, the first thing you'd say, yes, you do, and I got evidence of it. But they still haven't, 24 hours later, asked her the question, did you tell the truth when you said that, Chloe? Come on, tell us. Forget about your virtue signaling and performative politics and all this eye-rolling and the full 100 yards. Tell us the truth.
Yeah, well, I think New Zealanders probably know the truth, because if you're standing beside someone there, who's people around you. There's people around you. What do you think? Do you solely blame her for this, for her rhetoric? Do you?
No, I don't. I'm just saying that she's excusing it, though. She actually said, well, they've got to have some way of expressing themselves. That is, outside somebody's door, breaking the law, loudspeakers blasting away, waking all the whole neighbourhood up. The pets, the dogs, the babies, and everything out in the neighbourhood, even suburbs away, people were ringing me saying, there's something happening at your place, and I wasn't even there when it first happened.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, she said, "Oh, this is abhorrent and it's not good enough and everything." Do you accept what she said there, or do you think that's weasel words?
It sounds, given her explanation for the rightness of what they were doing, utter, total weasel words. She doesn't know what the boundaries are.
Yeah, and you need to. I mean, for all the time I've been involved in covering politics and politicians, they've always been off limits. Politicians, their houses. We didn't approach you there. We didn't approach your families. It's not their business. It's purely, you go to the people that you hold accountable. Politicians. This crosses a new line. I mean, this breaches the code that's long been established. I reckon, Winston.
No, that's a fact, and that's sad because when you lower the bar keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And in this case, we've got to raise the bar, but we had this debate in Parliament, and so many of them, instead of getting up and understanding and saying, well, that's wrong, that's categorically wrong, and those people have got no excuse, no matter what their cause, for behaving that way, they kept on putting the caveats and the codicils on, no, but they had an adequate cause to be protesting about. See what I mean?
Yeah, well, I remember, 25 years ago, you'll remember this. Very few people remember these sorts of things, but Helen Clark, Prime Minister at the time, her house was identified in a Sunday Star Times article, front page of the Sunday Star Times. Remember, this was a boarding house issue in her street. And she rightly hit the roof over that. You remember that? So it's always been...
Yes, but she was right to hit the roof. I mean, that's just cheap, nasty stuff. It adds nothing to the story. That just means that your so-called media or protesting presence has got an ulterior motive to damage the person seriously, or their family don't have any regard for the consequences.
Yeah.
I'm not overemphasizing this, but I was actually shattered. I'll rephrase that. When I realized this glass went all over this dog, our dog, I realized how lucky he was not to have lost his sight or swallowed some of it or got his paws cut and everything else. That's the miracle of all this.
Well, but there could have been also people sitting in that room as well, or inside
that room.
Well, they were.
Yeah. Just 3 minutes beforehand, there were two people sitting in there, and they just left. And the dog, that's why he was sitting in there, because he hadn't left his bed. Mind, he's got 3 beds.
You would tell him to move. Tell him to move beds. He would change location. But I mean, it's not. I know it's not a laughing matter. Your partner as she sort of said, "Geez, Winston, this isn't worth it." I mean, because I know what it's like with partners and politics and everything, and they do they live their own world and their own life, and they don't buy into this. They haven't signed up for that.
Now, all that's true, and there's no denying it, no argument against that, excepting to abdicate the position is to let the people who have behaved that way win, and we're never going to let that happen.
You said you wish you were there and you had something in your hand. What do you mean by that?
Oh, a golf club.
Yeah, a driver.
He would have been eating his meals off the mantelpiece by the time he recovered from his sore ass. Excuse the language.
I can understand that. Because I mean, every man has a right to defend his. Well, I think that's the law in New Zealand, isn't it? You have a right to defend your home.
Yes, yeah, of course you have.
Yeah. So you would have done that.
Well, you're allowed to take appropriate action as long as you don't overdo it.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying there. And
But, a guy's got a crowbar.
yeah,
Guy's got a crowbar. You got to be one gutless, spineless, inverted commas.
yes.
Starts with a P, ends with a K.
Yeah, no, I know the guy. I know what you're talking about. Hey, Winston, so you put this legislation's gone up and gone to a select committee. I would have thought, I've given up on the Greens and Te Pāti Māori. I think they guys are loops. But Labour is some sort of mainstream party. You would think might have supported this, but given what they've said about it, I would have thought Hipkins would have got his people in behind this.
Well, I think it's still possible. I mean, if they've got concerns about certain elements, then let's thrash our way through it. But what you're seeking to do is something that's come down through hundreds of years in part of our law, but it started with the British law, and the simplicity of it was explained, an Englishman's home is his castle. That's what it was. So no matter how lowly they were, they had the same rights as a castle and protection against outsiders.
Mm. What do you think of the media's coverage of it, or so even sort of more extreme parts of the media? Do you think they have, people like Bomber Bradbury, do you think they have called for action, like in terms of action against you and things like that? Do you blame anyone else in particular?
No, you're wasting your time with Bomber. I mean, you're absolutely wasting your time with Bomber. In fact, I don't know if he saw his latest press release. He must have started off with a few drinks by the end of it. He can't even spell Parliament right or politicians right. He's got the spelling all terrible. He starts off, no mistakes, but by page 3, he's making mistakes in each paragraph.
Well, maybe he's out on a late night session with Taco DeFerris or something like that, Maybe they're having a late night. Well, I just think it's just become like people want to fight for Gaza, want to fight for the Palestinians. I understand that, and I understand what's happening there. But to bring it into our own streets is to import that sort of international conflict and violence into our domestic streets. It's just not our way.
Well, here's the thing, these other countries, over 150, they say, recognise Palestine. But how did it change anything? And even, our recent colleagues, and we were thinking the same way, and they changed their status and they changed their criteria. We didn't change ours. And our question to them was, and what will happen the day after? Because that's the key point. And then I was looking at the United Nations. I was thinking when I was talking to there's a whole lot of countries here signed up to Palestine and have never given them a cent. Mm. My country, under criticism, has given them tens of millions, and I'm sure with the approval of New Zealanders, given the circumstances. But see the difference? We're a country with a proud record of putting our money where our mouth is. Mm. Anybody can exercise and be virtue signaling, but to back it up with proper charity and proper support, New Zealand has done. That's the point. Yeah,
but I thought it was a really sophisticated, actually, statement on a complex issue. It's a really complex issue. And I think New Zealand can stand. Well, I personally disagree with the protesters here. I think we can stand tall on that statement and be proud of our position, can't we?
Well, we've got every reason to be seriously proud of our position. And here's the point. Not one of those nations, Muslim nations, has criticised us, because we've talked to Egypt, we've talked to the Emirates, we've talked to Indonesia, we've talked to the president, we've talked to the Palestinian Authority. They understand and we've made our position clear. But they know when it comes to the big picture of helping out really on the ground, then we can be relied upon. Not so many of their so-called fair weather friends who've never given them a cent or helped them in any way at all.
What about these New Zealanders that are trying to get back from over there, these protesters? What's the latest update with them?
Look, they had about 2 trucks of aid on all of those boats. The Italian Prime Minister offered to put a military boat in to take the aid off them and get it to the destination in a way they would have got to the destination. And they said no. Does that sound like they're genuine now? Mm. And here's the other point. They always knew they were never going to make it. And then, oh God, the lies that have come out of there. First of all, they're being starved. And then I find that 2 are on a hunger strike.
Yeah. You can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways, can you?
And I've done my own research on those boats as well. My understanding was there was on each boat there is less than a truck of food, less than 1 truck of food. Now, if you're sitting in hundreds of trucks a day out of Israel, 1 truck. I mean, really?
Well, that's the point. For hundreds of thousands of people of need, and they've got so little. And look, a lot of the provisions that we've seen were not in any way going to help anybody at all. Like, for example, cardboard plates. Can you imagine this? This is unbelievable stuff. It all there was in a bit like Greta Thunberg, it's blah, 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 and bull dust. In fact, out there, of course, were other countries like Singapore. Singapore's got the same view as ours, but Singapore went to extraordinary effort to get aid there. I mean, enormous cost, enormous personal cost to the foreign minister as well, only to be frustrated when they were there. Not because of not because of Israel.
Well,
but these are the circumstances.
Yeah, and they know the result. They know what's going to happen when they get to a certain point. You're not going to get there. And so, what happens now? They're coming back through Jordan, are they? Is it they have to find their own way home, or how does it work?
Yeah, they're being bussed out to Jordan, and amazing on mainstream media this morning on Morning Report. There, this guy was being interviewed, and his father going on about the sacrifice he's made. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Well, it takes up a lot of time for the embassies and consul generals and everything around the world, right?
That's right. These are the people that said, of course, they want us to shut down all diplomatic relations with Israel, excepting the moment this happened, they're asking us what are we doing about getting to them. Yeah. And guess what? Because we've got diplomatic relations, we can talk to Israel direct and get them and make sure we found out where they were and get them away safely.
Should
See
we?
The irony here?
Yeah, no, I understand totally. This is why I'm asking the question. Should we and could we do more for them? I mean, you could do what you like. You can go to the full extent, can't you? Are you limiting your response to them because you're highly peeved with them and you're annoyed with what they've done? I mean, could we do more, or what's your position?
We've done all that my department can do. We've got them. We're getting them securely out of the place into Jordan, and from there they can make their own way home. But please don't ask me, ask the New Zealand taxpayer to pay for their way home as well, given they were told not to go in the first place.
Did you go too far in helping them anyway? I mean, do they deserve to be helped through to Jordan even? I mean, there'll be some people in this country that say, stuff them, Winston.
But we've got to act responsibly even when people act totally irresponsibly. You know, we've had some great records recently in foreign affairs. No one cares much about civil servants doing the right thing. But a man was in prison in Vietnam, and through our direct efforts, we got this person out. He was dying, actually, and he's back home in New Zealand. And then we sent a plane all the way to the borders of Iran for the 138 who wanted to get out of there. And by the time the plane got there, peace had broken out, so not one person got on the plane. You see the frustration that went into that organisation?
Yeah. But the prisoner you're talking about, I mean, a lot of the times we never hear about these headlines, right? A lot of the times what you do at Foreign Affairs, we don't see or hear the victories.
Oh, you know, we spent 555 days with a guy called Philip Mertens who was being kidnapped in Papua. And after all this time, with all this hard work, and with the cooperation of the Indonesian authorities, and has talked to the president about it, we got him out. Now, that's only one person, but it shows me that the department, in many cases, has got a lot of occasions to be enormously proud. And when we had the massive disturbances in New Caledonia, we got our people out and 19 other countries' people out as well. Does anybody salute us for doing that? No. Just take it as granted. Everybody wants to hear bad news.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not, prisons aren't full of good men. Most of the time they're full of bad men. So this is what newspapers and media do. But there are also, what I've learned from leaving politics and coming into Auckland and doing media from up here, there are always two sides to stories, and you need to be a bit more open to things. And so that I've learned lessons out of that. With this guy who's up on charges here, who's been arrested, what do you want to see, Winston?
Oh, look, I can't because being a lawyer, the sub judice rule applies now. Mm-hmm. I just hope all the facts are put in front of the court and we'll see what the outcome is, but I can't comment on that outcome.
I'm going to leave it there, Winston. Always appreciate getting you on. I must get you on more too. There's election year coming up, so there'll be plenty of opportunity. Nice to see you. You're looking well.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
But as Phil Collins sang in that famous song of his, you got to hear both sides of the story. That's all journalism is about.
Yeah. Well, there's a few of us still doing it. Okay, lead us to the editor. Duncan, I studied economics and finance, and we learned a few valuables that these elitist wombles in Wellington don't understand. The more the government takes out, there is a multiplication effect that occurs. Every dollar they take out multiplies. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's true. Every business they let go to the wall, they in turn cancel services in the service industry. That then decimates the retail sector. The inverse is also true that government spending has a multiplying effect within the economy. Every dollar they spend has multiplication effect, e.g. that number may be 7. So the government spends, let's say, $1 million. Okay? Or maybe it's 10 million. What is that number there? Yeah. $1 million. The multiplication effect is 7 million. These wombles are not getting professional advice. They're rehashing old policies from National Seller and trying to fit them into today's present. This is absolute bullshit. Policies of the past were set for a specific challenge at the time. The economics of today and the economy of today is vastly different to force a square peg into a round hole. Just because you can hit it hard enough is ludicrous. The only thing that all economists with any merit learnt from the Great Depression was when you are in a recession, don't cut government spending like they are. It's ideological, aimed at a small extreme number of National Party sponsors. It's non-economics. How can I pay your sub, mate? We'd like to support you. Don't have the text. Keep going. If New Zealand has a future, we need honest reporting. Rodney Steele. Rodney, appreciate your thoughts. I agree with you. I think National is pulling out policies from the Shipley-Bolger key days, as far back as Bolger and Shipley, and I was there, so I can see it. It's like the Code of Social Responsibility. It's like the cutbacks. In a recession, you have to fund people. In a recession, you have to keep money supply going. You pull the rug, and you saw what happened in the late 80s. You pull the rug, and society in many instances collapses. And we saw that with the Great Depression as well in the 1930s. I'm on board with you 100%. And I also agree with you that the policies they're bringing out is a rehash of what they've done before that's worked or hasn't worked. But it's the National Party code. It's all they've got. I don't think they've been creative enough, and I'll be quite clear about that too. And this is not to suggest that, I support Labour and the Greens. I think they're deluded on the other side. The worst thing would be an incoming change of government. You'd all go to Australia. I think I've been pretty clear on that. That's us, folks. Thank you for your feedback. Duncan at rover.nz is my email. So get hold of me there, duncan.rover@nz. And thank you for your support. Thank you for your emails. You can, of course, subscribe. Please do so. You can also subscribe for $7.99 a month. So if you text 3598, so text the word Duncan to 3598, that will take you through to the link, and you can back Team Duncan. For that, you get all sorts of bonus episodes every week. You get an Ask Me Anything sessions. You get my weekly newsletter. It unlocks all sorts of bonus interviews and things. So that's all there. 3598, text the word Duncan to 3598, and it helps us stay alive. We're in a battle to stay alive. We need to be financial. We need to cover our costs, and this will always be free, this podcast. But then there's the extra bit afterwards, which is the subscriber episodes, and that comes to you every Friday. And if you text with Duncan to 3598, you'll unlock that by paying $7.99 a month. It's to keep us here. It's less than a price of a beer or coffee in some fancy Auckland place, $7.99 a month. I really do appreciate your support. With your support, we stay around. Without it, I can't guarantee anything. Right, thank you to my producers. Brody, thank you, mate. Lockie, thank you, mate. Always appreciate your work, mate. And you guys, you always do a fantastic job. Real professionals. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Take care, folks. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal. There is no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. Thank you to the Brothers Green, Christchurch, who support us and back us and are in partnership with us. And we'll do it all again tomorrow. Take care. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, sponsored by the Brothers Green. Feed your gut what it needs. Digest Gut Health Protein Powder. I use it myself. It supports natural digestion and gut health. Made with premium Canterbury-grown hemp powder and a unique blend of active kiwifruit enzyme powder and kiwifruit skin extract, offering natural prebiotics and a nutrient-rich profile to complement a balanced lifestyle. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch.